Have you ever wondered about the first two people on Earth? In a place of breathtaking beauty called the Garden of Eden, two special friends, Adam and Eve, made their home. They were the very first people in the world given a unique task by God to lovingly care for all the plants and animals that populated this paradisiacal garden. Imagine Adam, tall and strong with a smile that could light up the darkest corners, and Eve, graceful and kind with eyes that twinkled brighter than the most radiant stars. Together, they journeyed through the garden, marveling at the magnificent sights around them. Eden was a place beyond dreams, where trees bore succulent fruits of every conceivable kind, and flowers bloomed, boasting vibrant colors that would put rainbows to shame. Sweet melodies of birds filled the air, and animals roamed freely, all under the watchful and caring eyes of Adam and Eve. In this paradise, they had only one rule to follow: not to eat from one particular tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. One day, as they explored the garden, Adam and Eve came across the forbidden tree. Its fruit looked so tempting, just hanging there shimmering like a precious gem in the morning sunlight. Near this tree, a crafty serpent slithered, its scales glistening, its eyes twinkling with a cunning glint. "Go on, take a bite," the serpent hissed in Eve's ear, its voice as smooth as silk. "God said you would die if you eat from this tree, but that's not true. You won't die. Instead, you'll become like God, knowing all there is to know about good and evil." Eve hesitated, looking at the tree with a newfound curiosity. The serpent's words echoed in her mind, and the fruit looked more appealing than ever. Finally, she reached out, plucked a fruit from the tree, and took a bite. The fruit tasted like nothing she had ever experienced before, sweet yet strange. She then offered it to Adam, who, seeing Eve unharmed, also took a bite. As the taste of the forbidden fruit filled their mouths, their eyes were opened in a way they never had been before. Suddenly they realized they were naked, and a wave of shame washed over them. They hastily stitched together fig leaves to cover themselves, trying to hide their newfound awareness. They felt different, exposed, and a sense of unease settled in their hearts. When they heard the sound of God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, they ran and hid among the trees, their hearts pounding in their chests. But God, who sees all and knows all, called out to them, "Where are you?" Emerging from their hiding place, Adam and Eve stood before God, their heads bowed low. Their hearts were heavy with guilt as they confessed their disobedience. "We ate from the tree that you told us not to," they admitted, their voices barely above a whisper. Scared and guilty, they confessed their disobedience to God. Their paradise was lost, and the weight of their actions began to sink in. But this was just the beginning of their story, a story filled with lessons of obedience, temptation, and God's unfailing love. God, who sees and knows all things, forgave Adam and Eve. Yet, forgiveness did not mean they could escape the consequences of their actions. God's voice, gentle but firm, echoed through the garden as he explained the effects of their disobedience. Adam and Eve had to leave the paradise they had known as home. The Garden of Eden, with its vibrant flowers, sweet fruits, and friendly animals, was no longer theirs to enjoy. They were sent out into the world, a world much different from Eden, a world where they would have to toil and sweat to grow crops among thorns and thistles. Life outside Eden would be challenging. They would work hard, face struggles, and learn about the harsh realities of life. But they would also learn about resilience, faith, and the power of love and unity. They would start a family, raise children, and pass on their teachings to generations to come. Adam and Eve left Eden hand in hand, stepping into a world full of unknowns. But they were not alone. Even as they left the garden, God's presence was with them. His love was a beacon of light guiding them through the darkness, a source of strength in times of weakness. And amidst the consequences, there was a promise that filled their hearts with hope. God, in his infinite mercy and love, promised to send a Savior. This Savior would not just be for Adam and Eve, but for all of humanity. He would come to save them from their sins, to offer redemption, and a chance for a new beginning. With this promise etched in their hearts, Adam and Eve bravely ventured into the world. They carried with them lessons learned, memories of Eden, and the hope of God's promise. They knew that life would be different, perhaps difficult, but they also knew that God's love would never leave them. With God's love guiding them, they faced the unknown together. And that, dear listeners, is the story of how consequence brought about new beginnings and how a promise held the power to change the course of humanity. And so, Adam and Eve left the garden hand in hand, facing the unknown together. This marked the end of their life in Eden, but the beginning of a journey filled with lessons that echo to this day. The story of Adam and Eve teaches us about obedience. They were given one simple rule, but they broke it. In doing so, they learned the consequences of disobedience. But this story is not just about obedience. It's also about temptation. The serpent was crafty, and its words were tempting. From this, we learn to resist the allure of false promises and stand firm in our convictions. Above all, the story of Adam and Eve is a testament to God's endless love. Despite their disobedience, God forgave them and promised a Savior. This promise is a beacon of hope, a reminder that God's love is unending and ever-forgiving. And that, my dear friends, is the story of Adam and Eve, the first friends in the beautiful Garden of Eden, who learned about obedience, temptation, and God's endless love.